Thank you for listening to Depictions Media Radio. You have tuned in to the Community Living Podcast with Kelly Rayburn, Paul Gilbert, and Michael Klaus.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the podcast of the Community Living Show. My name is Kelly Rayburn, aka DJ Ray. I do the late night show on Co-op Radio and on Mixcloud. Along with me is my partner, Paul Gilbert, who is in Victoria right now. Hi, Paul. How are you doing?
Good.
I hear you were sound asleep there just a moment ago.
Oh, yeah, I dozed off. Life is just too exciting.
Yeah, so I was watching a bit of Dr. Bonnie Henry just around 3 o'clock on Monday afternoon. And she was saying about the situations about what was on the report and what was happening on youth people, and some of the results were very interesting. If you want to check that out online, either one of those later on. But how are you dealing with the situation? I know they talk issues on seniors like yourself and stuff on their kind of diary survey that they did online. And again, many of the people are saying, like, when they do lose their jobs, they get very sad, they get very lonely, they get the chances of, like, I wish I was working again, that kind of sort of stuff. So I wonder what your take was on that, Paul.
Oh, well, that's always been a problem for anybody in the population that becomes isolated.
Right.
And especially with work, when it comes down to work is often meaning in life. What gives their lives meaning is what they do. Mm-hmm. So that's being cut off from it can be pretty traumatic. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's always good to actually have more going on, so you don't invest too much of your meaning in working. Mm-hmm. I always figure. But yeah,
it's interesting that many of the youth, and I wouldn't. Well, my mom was telling me that 40 is kind of a youth situation where half of our time is more, more spending time at home.
So yeah, you said see the person. You have people in your office more often. You see your family and your spouse.
Right. Exactly. And
it's a shame.
Yeah. It basically comes down to that, and for some people. But anyways,
of course, if you live in Greater Vancouver, you probably see people's bumpers almost as much as you see your family.
Absolutely, it does happen from time to time. Are you keeping cool on yourself? What's the weather like? Is it the same as Vancouver here? Pretty sunny?
It's pretty warm today. Mm-hmm. I've got an air conditioner though, so
okay.
So I generally don't notice the temperatures too much. But yeah, I was out there earlier, and yes, it is getting pretty warm in Victoria. Beautiful day though.
Yeah, very beautiful day. Yeah, it's not a cloud in the sky. It's supposed to get up to 32 degrees today. That's what I heard. 32, well, not 32, but close around 29 or 30 around there, around Metro Vancouver. So it's gonna get pretty warm. That's for
apparently,
sure.
the House of Commons is meeting today to discuss the wage subsidy extension and the disability payments, and the what is the 5-day wage subsidy for people who are ill? Mm-hmm. Basically, sick days for everybody.
Right.
Regardless of whether you're not in a union or what have you.
Okay.
That's pretty important. We should have had that years ago.
Okay.
And so they're debating it, and along with that debate is the $600 they're planning on giving to people with disabilities who are on who receive the disability tax credit.
Okay.
As seniors and people on senior supplement, etc. So
Right.
yeah, there's a segment of the population that gets money from the federal government. I guess the idea being that the provincial government's been increasing monies for people on BC disability benefits, so these people aren't connected to that. They're receiving money from the federal government instead.
Right. Okay.
So let's keep our toes crossed and hope for money.
Yeah, vote for money, yes, of course.
Apparently, if you apply for the disability tax credit, if you don't have it, you can, and get it in the next couple of months, you can get the $600.
Okay.
So there's a bonus for actually getting your doctor to fill out a form.
Oh, there you go. Good to know. Okay, on your Facebook page, BC Disabilities, there you're talking about some issues on Human Rights Commission or commissioner on the commissioner. I'll tell you the story. It's on the.
Trying to get people to come to the meetings.
Yeah, by coming to meetings, and that's happening tomorrow night, tomorrow night at 3 p.m., which is July 21st. Give us an example of what things that needs to be spread upon.
Well, basically, they're having a virtual meeting. They're free, and actually, you don't have to be part of any organization to take part in them.
Okay.
But the idea is you're meeting the Human Rights Commissioner and discussing the priorities that the Human Rights Commission has for the foreseeable future, and what human rights issues you encounter.
Okay.
Well, the only thing is that the priorities that the Human Rights Commissioner wants to focus on, they divulge in a PDF file that they have attached to their site, and they don't have anything to do with the disabled except incidentally.
Okay.
But and raised this with them when I was having the consultation in the coastal region. Over 50%, and actually 60% federally, of human rights complaints are lodged by people who have experienced disability discrimination. This has been that way for years. That most human rights complaints regard disability issues. But the Human Rights Commissioner is not focused on any of those things.
Okay. No, it's not.
It's a little bit strange.
How so?
Well, despite the fact that the most of her job has to do with dealing with disability rights,
yes,
she's not talking about disability rights.
No.
I mean, that's how if you hired somebody to basically a server to serve customers, and they decided not to serve customers any longer, you'd be a bit ticked.
Yeah, everybody would be ticked too about it if anything to doing with right issues and stuff.
Yeah. Yes. So I mean, they apparently they're not they're not captioning the meeting for open captions for people who participate, but you can ask them to.
Okay.
But they want to be given 48 hours notice before to caption the meetings.
Okay.
Which is strange because an internet meeting, they could hire somebody from anywhere in North America, anywhere in the world, to caption the meetings for them.
Okay.
They could even hire somebody to do silent ASL for the meetings for them.
Okay.
I just don't get it when you consider that every time Bonnie Henry and Adrian Dix are on TV talking, they have a caption. They have somebody doing ASL for people.
Right.
So why is it difficult for the Human Rights Commissioner to do that?
It's a good question. I don't know the answer on that, but it's an interesting question to ask about.
Yeah, it's what surprises me is when you consider that language rights for the deaf were never covered properly in Bill C-81, the act that brought us the Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities into law in Canada. So language rights is something that needs to be dealt with and so captioning and sign language interpreting being available for people within the population. It's pretty tough, considering how few places that people can actually have those available.
Okay, I see. All right.
Anyway, that's my take on it. But yes, if you want to, you're invited to meet with the Human Rights Commissioner, and you can contact. Check out the BC Disability Caucus page. We have a post at the top of it.
Yeah.
But it's at http://bchumanrights.ca events meet BC Human Rights Commissioner.
All right.
And you can. There's a meeting on the 21st from 1 to 3, and August 6th.
Okay.
And August 20th as well coming up.
Interesting. Another post you've posted was the BC COVID battle inflects under 1%. New study has found that less than 1% British Columbians have been affected by COVID-19 by late May, and public health officials on Thursday. Do you get any interesting reviews on that?
Well, yeah, it's amazing that we've been doing as well as we have. Well, I mean, it's as Bonnie Henry and Adrian Dick said, it's basically luck and being on top of it from the get-go ahead of other people. But yeah, less than 1% of British Columbians have been affected by COVID-19 by late May. So according to the serology tested blood samples for traces of viruses related to antibodies, found only 0.55% were positive. It's pretty tiny.
Yeah, it is very tiny indeed. It gives you most of the sense of who has it or not, right?
So 16,500 people have contracted the virus in the province.
Right.
So they should claim minority status.
True. Yes, it's very interesting. Anyways, so you can check them out at bctyee.ca and search under the news of BC COVID's battle kept inflections under 1% out of the main tunnel. So, yeah, so this is very interesting.
It's a very, very different from sorry, and my brain isn't working.
Yeah, no worries.
It just amazes me how different it is between what's happening here in BC and what's happening in the U.S. with all the catastrophic increases in infection rates and deaths, and the federal government there is trying to stop provincial state governments from testing.
Yeah.
Because they don't want it. Their numbers will look bad if more people are tested.
Yeah. Well, speaking of U.S. and what I've heard, and I've heard it from my mother as well, on the BC or not the BCC, their actual CDC reports, and everything that deals with the COVID must be reported to the CDC. And through the U.S. government. Well, you know what Donald Trump wants to do. It's just get rid of the CDC and just send all the COVID cases to the U.S. government, and that's the end of that story. So yes, apparently that there is a move to try to hide the data. That's been happening in a number of countries. I mean, with Donald Trump and the Republicans, a lot of it just comes down to the fact that there's an election in November. Right. So they're just trying to say, well, listen, forget the CDC. We're just going to do what we're going to do just on our case, and just well, I know Canadian government has their own government health ministries, and the provincials have their own health ministries. It's like, the United States is more different than what we do.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a different whole ballgame over there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's quite strange. I mean, the Americans have been trying to get Canada to open its borders
That's what I heard. And I for one, I'd rather just say no and don't do the border open situations because
I hadn't heard that phrase in years. It's harkening back to Nancy Reagan. Just say no.
Just say no. Yeah, that's for darn sure. So, and then there was another one, say no to drugs or something like that.
Yeah.
So that's another quote on that issue. Yeah, but I mean, the border issue is bang on. They've been banged on it with the Canadian Prime Minister. They've been banged on with our premiers. It's been, issue after issue of saying, look, you have more cases than we do, kind of an issue thing, right?
Yeah. So. It's too easy to catch. We still haven't really. We're still nailing down how contagious it is, and what they're finding a lot of the time is people who are coming in through BC. They've been finding a number of people who come into BC with claiming to be driving to Alaska. That, they go for a vacation in BC instead, and they find them. They've been finding a few people $1,000 for doing that. Because they're not really allowed here, and despite the fact that they'd love to come have a vacation here, we can't afford the risk.
Yes, that's the thing. And all they need to do is either fly over to Alaska or take the ferry to Alaska. Either one of those two is better than just to travel here.
Yeah, it takes them less time to fly. And the airlines are pretty empty these days, considering everybody's afraid of catching something.
Yeah, I mean, my mother and I yesterday were at the airport, just thinking, very, very little airlines coming and going. But it's like when I actually did go to the airport just the other day, they were like, the number of flights of going both nationally and internationally compared to the U.S. travel, which I went over to the American desk and everything, there were just about 4 or 5 flights going to the United States. That was really bizarre. Yeah, it was really bizarre. It just blew my imagination away. It's like, wow, very little people at the airport and very little got a chance to flying over there. So
yeah, it must be decimating their airline industry. Or ours too.
Yeah, and basically, I read online was on Air Canada. I know they have a situation on I wouldn't say Air Canada. Air Canada. I'm just typing this up right now, so bear with me right now. I'm just searching through my computer here on health. No, that's not it. That's not it. Oh, golly. And this could be edited as well. So, anyways, on Air Canada, they're saying about the safety and the regulations. And, of course, if there are any people have issues on airness situations like asthmas and stuff like that, just to really go online to see what is really happening on air flights and stuff. Yeah. I can't.
Yeah, they were. Air Canada and others were refusing to give people refunds when they had to cancel their airlines.
Yes.
Air flights.
Mm-hmm.
But they've decided that they'll use a goodwill policy.
Right, that's the other thing too. I can't even get it through the headlines here. They'll give you an Air Canada voucher for the remaining value of your ticket. Mm-hmm.
That will have no expiration date, or passengers can convert the remaining value of their ticket to airplane miles.
Yes,
so you can use it to travel in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Because your airplane miles expire, so you better make sure that you use them.
Yeah, they're promoting the Clean Care Plus. That's what's the program they're trying to deal with, and you can go online on Air Canada to find out more about safety, and it's clean care situation and what's happening with their dealing with situation with COVID-19. So.
Yes, we used to have a national airlines that was owned by the people. That was there. Wasn't that Air Canada used to be publicly owned?
Probably. I wouldn't be surprised if it did. So hang on.
There was two main airlines in Canada, and one was public and one was private. And the public one was sold, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It's a long time ago. I'm getting pretty old.
Yeah, so they are doing the procedures like sanitizing, getting your temperature checks, etc., etc., etc. So they are doing the best they can to dealing with the COVID-19 and making sure that all airplanes are clean and safe.
Apparently, they find people flying in from the U.S. They routinely find people whose temperatures are out of whack, and they have to quarantine them. But everybody who comes in from another country is supposed to be quarantined for 14 days anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is hard for people, and especially myself. I am diabetic. I do have problems on diabetes issues, and my mom's the same. My mother has major asthma, and if you touch to another person who does have COVID, she'll have difficulty of breathing and stuff.
Yes, it's a scary disease, definitely. We're not, but I mean that it's so new and nobody knows how much of an effect it'll have. But apparently it affects every organ of your body, including your brain.
Yeah, and I heard some studies on COVID-19 on brain issues as well. Yeah, it's very scary, indeed.
Yeah. John Horgan was on TV yesterday. Was it yesterday?
Or maybe the day before.
Talking about the new funds that they've arranged from the federal government to pay for all sorts of different things, including additional money for transportation that will be used all over the province, which is good. We need decent transportation. I just wish that when he was talking to the federal government, he talked to them about the money that they promised to bring back the $45 a year bus pass, because they promised that last election, and they haven't done it yet. They gave everybody a rate increase, but they were going to do that anyway. They said before they promised to do that before the election, but then they didn't increase the bus pass.
Yeah, but the thing is, when we had the restrict rules on public transit issues, that many of the fares on buses weren't collected, except for SkyTrain and Sea buses that were collected to it.
That was good. That was good. It's a shame that they had to end that, but I mean, honestly, as Horgan was saying yesterday, they've been bankrupting themselves by people not being on the buses. They can't afford to run them without any public input.
Yeah, and they needed more input for more people like myself who do take public transit on a regular basis, not just for radio, but also on work and other parts on the issues there, and especially on disabilities too.
Now they're actually asking everybody who uses public transit to wear a mask.
Yes,
which is good. Because you can't. It's hard to have a full bus and have everybody socially distanced.
Yeah.
When they first started up, people were several seats apart, right, on the bus.
Yeah, and I wish they still would have continued doing that, because would have been more safer to ride a bus more friendlier, just to close up the seats. Right now, they're just opening up the seats, saying, okay, we're going to do the bus fare payments again, and dealing with the regular seats and stuff. And I have a feeling this is too early to do all that kind of thing.
I agree, especially in the winter, since winter is going to come up, and everybody's going to be indoors, and we're going to hit another peak in the fall, I'm sure. Yeah,
and dealing with the second wave. Now, I know you posted another one on YouTube on the I wouldn't say it's the second wave, but you posted another one on BC Disability Caucus. Now I lost my page on BC Disability Caucus. Okay, here we go. On the effects on their jobs in the pandemic, who is supported and who is not. I was okay. The headline says, "Here's who lost jobs in the pandemic and who needs supported." So this was the again on the BCT newspaper news online newspaper newsletter thing that they posted a while back.
Oh yes. Well, certain sectors are pretty seriously affected by the pandemic, and are sort of wiped out.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of sectors are being wiped out. I've noticed that the restaurant sector is hospitality sectors have been suffering quite severely. I mean, a lot of these places just can't function at all.
Right.
The ones that have done well are the ones where people can work from home anyway.
Yes.
It's interesting. A friend of mine is in an office that they worked from home for quite some time, and then they were called in, and they had to start going into the office.
Mm-hmm.
I think that if an employer can have you work from home, that would be the right thing to do. Just as the universities now, a lot of them are basically closed, and everybody's we're doing their classes from home.
Okay.
Not that the universities are open right now, but they will be. But the same thing with, it's harder for students with disabilities to work from home often because they need assistance. But the university students, they can work from home and still have adaptive aids available and things like that. So it's just safer.
Mm. I know we're talking about on racial issues and that sort of stuff, and I know the United States were involvement with the black issue over there. The Black Lives Matter situation. A lot of stuff that's happening right now, but we don't hear a lot about it on the disability issue sides of things. And
no, the issue about the sort of what are called social justice warriors in the U.S. and in Canada, all around the world, we had an article on the truth according to social justice, and on the problem is that the social justice movement is ideological. It's
right.
It's not what you would think of as an extension of people like Martin Luther King. This is a group of people, there's a collection of people who they don't have a commitment to, basically, they're sort of opposed to the idea that reality is something that's objective.
Yep.
And that empiricism, and they're anti-rational, and they're anti-liberal, and they're basically like Maoists. It's anti-intellectual, anti-equality. It's really quite a strange movement, but it's growing and it's all over the place. And the reason it started in the postmodernists in France decades ago, and it gradually entered the universities, and it's been in the universities training teachers and things like that for a number of decades now, and it's sort of hit a point where there's enough of them to have an influence.
Yes.
So you have things like the Google memo, where this person was talking about why it is that women might not want to be in the tech sector. And there was nothing anti-woman about his memo. It was actually just based on facts and research about why women prefer certain occupations over others. And it's quite true. I mean, the research is in on that women's preferences for working with people over men's preferences for working with things is verifiable in research. It's not a myth.
Right. Okay.
But he got fired for his memo because the idea that there's any biological basis to sex differences is something that the postmodernist alt-left find offensive.
Mm-hmm.
The feminists have found that offensive for years, but
Right.
The idea that there's a biological basis, that there's a different biological difference between the sexes.
Right.
But I mean, the research supports it. So,
Okay.
who are you going to listen to, science or ideology?
Good question. Cool. Of course, you're tuned into the Community Living Podcast. I'm with Paul Gilbert, and of course, Michael's away now, so I'm here on different topics and different issues.
The federal government's up on top of getting 75 million syringes and alcohol swabs to bandages so they can inoculate Canadians as soon as the COVID-19 vaccine is ready.
Okay.
Are you going to go get a vaccine immediately?
That's a matter.
Thought, eh?
Yeah, but that's a matter of when they're actually giving it to the people right now, because I know October and November we have our usual annual flu shot, for that matter, and it's a matter of when are we getting these kind of COVID-19 vaccines, which will be handy to use. Because I have one question. When we had SARS, was there a thing? I know there was a thing called the H1N1. I thought that was the issue that spread it around the world because of the SARS issue. Am I correct on that or no?
I thought I think so. I thought there was a new outbreak of another virus. I thought it was SARS.
Mm-hmm.
Was back.
Yes.
Just now in some parts of the world.
Yeah. And
but yeah, we haven't. I mean, we weren't really hit by it in North America. I think that's why people didn't react so quickly when COVID-19 came about, is because mostly North America wasn't affected.
Right.
And so suddenly we had a virus that everybody was affected by.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's scary how quickly it's happening. But apparently it's going to be even more likely that pandemics will happen in the future, because we basically cleared off all these places. We're clearing off all the wilds and being more and more in contact with animals, and the animals don't actually have to get sick from from the viruses that they carry.
Right.
Just like we don't get sick from the bacteria we carry.
Right.
But we can get sick from it.
Yeah, it's just an interesting thought that we had SARS, and we just had some sort of a vaccine. And it's like, looking back to that time, it's like, didn't we just had a wake up call during that time when there was a waking point where SARS was around, and nobody knew about this next virus could matter hit worse, right?
Well, yeah, the government did develop a wake up call, and apparently the U.S. government had a panel on preparing for a pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
It was created under Bush, but the Trump administration defunded it and retired it.
Oh, okay.
Because naturally, unfortunately, they've got a president in the U.S. that doesn't believe in science.
No, I don't believe in those kind of CDC science and technology that's happened now. So, yeah, that's sad. That's very sad.
Yeah, it's a shame. All those, but yeah, one of the things that's been happening lately is the BCGEU is calling on the government to protect renters and not end the eviction ban that's been happening. They've banned evictions until September 1st. They're going to open up evictions again, so people can be evicted if they're not paying their rent. But the BCGEU is calling for an end to that because the pandemic is still with us and it's not going to be going away soon. It's hard on landlords, though. But you think that the government has been helping small business people. You think that they'd be able to help landlords that are suffering from the problem.
Right. Now, what about some of the universities that are dealing with a lot of online issues? And then, of course, we do have some students who want to become health experts and stuff like that. The thing that comes up to my mind is they're still at home coping some stuff, whereas they need to. I was thinking more like going back to universities and studying this situation.
Yeah, you'd think that the summer is upon us, and I don't imagine there's too much happening. Well, there's never too much happening at universities in this summer,
right?
Except, but even SFU that has a summer semester, it's usually pretty quiet.
Mm-hmm.
But the fall, the people, it's just all the universities are packed. It's like they were all built decades ago, but they haven't made them much bigger.
Yeah, but I'm just wondering if there's if they're thinking about the vaccine, like why are they not? I mean, if they come back to September, that's kind of like the $1 million question. If these students come back to the universities in September, are these? Will they
have a vaccine by then?
Yeah,
well, that's a hard thing to know. It's hard to say. There's vaccines being tested right now.
Yeah.
Various countries have vaccines in trials already.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, one of them will come forward. One of the things that was really strange was the other day, people were upset because they thought that Russia had stolen information about Canada's research into COVID-19 and creating a vaccine.
Mm-hmm.
Well, to me, I mean, one of the things that's been happening that's been historic is the amount of knowledge sharing between countries about COVID-19 and responses to it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know if I care if Russia is getting information about our vaccine work. I mean, we shouldn't. Ultimately, we really need to be sharing the information so we can get the vaccine settled as soon as possible. When you consider that they've been working on a vaccine for AIDS for decades.
Yeah.
It would be nice to actually get this one done fast.
It would be great, yeah. Unfortunately, whereas the COVID-19 situations, I believe they're pretty close to where Brazil and Russia on the top 3 charts of the COVID-19 active cases.
Yes, Brazil is a real mess, and India is coming up after them. Mm-hmm. And most of the problem in Brazil is the government. Jair Bolsonaro didn't want to do anything, and he actually was fighting with the mayors of cities who wanted to actually institute things. The same sort of things are happening in the U.S. where governors are fighting with mayors who want to bring mandatory mask use in.
Right.
It's very strange. But that's what happens. What's been happening in countries where there's no uniform overall strategy, and that's really the big difference between the U.S. and Canada. Is Canada has a uniform strategy that we've been cooperating between the provincial governments and the federal government and all the municipal governments, whereas in the U.S. they've been fighting with each other.
Yeah, and everything has to do with fight and hate, for that matter. So
yeah, it's very strange. I mean, but Canada. One of the things that I've always been proud of Canada is that we are a collaborative people, and we always have been, and that's one of the things that distinguishes us from Americans.
Mm-hmm. True.
I mean, actually, the first charities who were born in Canada were born out of helping other people in the community when everybody was really isolated and had to be incredibly self-reliant when they were setting up. That's when we had our first charities. Right.
And I'm just hoping we have a charity for COVID-19. So that'll be interesting. All right, so we're almost close to the end of our quarter to the hour. But anyways, I know you have your website on BC Disability Caucus on Facebook.
Yes, we're on the BC Disability Caucus on Facebook, on Twitter, and on LinkedIn. But one of the things that we're actually encouraging people, during COVID-19, a lot of people have been talking about an annual basic income, a basic income.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't oppose that. It's just that the disabled actually have a right to adequate standard of living and social protection under the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. It's Article 28.
Right.
And we should be getting the government has that in law under Bill C-81. They should be instituting it. They have until 2040 to institute the convention, but they should be instituting it now so people with disabilities have an adequate standard of living and social protection.
Mm-hmm.
Enough money for food, clothing, shelter, adaptive aids, and conditions of continuous improvement for themselves and their families.
Speaking of families, I know some of the people are here in BC are starting to travel throughout BC. And all I can, most governments are saying, saying stay safe and always protect each other, like Dr. Bonnie Henry would say. So, like I said, if you're going to Victoria and around that area, all I can say is, be safe down there and everything, right?
Yes, wear a mask and keep 6 feet apart.
Yep, everything. So, anyways, I'll let you go, and thank you very much for our one-on-one conversation.
Thank you, Kelly. And have a good weekend.
Yes, same to you, and so stay safe over there.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Paul Gilbert, who is the BC Disability Caucus member, and you can reach him through like I said, on Facebook, YouTube. And you can also email him, bcdisabilitycaucus@gmail.com. Thank you very much for tuning in, and look forward to seeing you again in about 2 weeks or so, along with maybe with Michael and stuff. I know he's going to be away for a few days, so I'm going to be around again. Of course, I'll be doing my drum and bass session on the late night show, both on Co-op Radio and on Mixcloud. Co-op Radio is going to be on a break for the month of August, so I will be doing the whole parts of drum and bass on my Mixcloud. My website address is mixcloud.com/Kelly-DJ-REA, Kelly-DJ-Ray. And I will see you all again whenever we can, if we get a chance to. Either Paul talks to Michael or myself talking with Paul, either one of those. So thank you very much for tuning in, and I hope that you guys stay safe out there and wash your hands. Take care, everybody.
This show has been produced by Depictions Media. Please contact us at depictions.media for more information.